Something that I often try to think of when I'm layering parts on a song like this is embodying different characters. And I've heard a couple of different notable session players here in town that I look up to talk about this concept of putting on different hats, being the slide guy, being the swells guy that does the huge reverb, and you just get into a lane and stick with that part through the whole song. Recently, when people ask me what I do for work, I just simply say I play guitar. And if they ask any prompting questions further than that, like, what does that mean? I'll often just explain and say that I play on people's songs that they send to me. And so I wanted to pull back the curtain, give a quick glimpse, and just show you what it is that logistically, nuts and bolts, means. So I've pulled up Pro Tools. You can see that on the screen. I've got a guitar, some pedals, and I'm just going to talk through what I think and how I approach writing parts and coming up with tones and trying to fill out songs and just make them sound a little bit more polished with the guitar parts that I add to them, and add movement and tone and texture and all of those buzzwords. So the first song that I wanted to take a look at is by a producer friend of mine named Mike O'Brien. Met Mike after a show. Sweet guy, works with churches. If you don't know his content, I would suggest adding him on Facebook, following him on Instagram and TikTok and all of those things. He always puts out useful tips for just church music ministry stuff in general. So highly recommend Mike's music and his content as well. We're going to take a look at this song called Royal Sun. It was produced by Mike and put out on the Vineyard record label, and it was an Advent song that came out late November, I believe. So it's out, you can listen to it, and he sent me drums, bass, keys, and a vocal, just a scratch. I won't play any of the finished or scratch type stuff unless it's just a rhythm instrument. So you can see in Pro Tools everything that I have pulled up. Some of it's muted. And what I have added is starting here with these highlighted tracks. And so let's just take a listen from the top and see what is happening. Minus my parts, let's hear what's going on. It's drums, bass, acoustics, and keys. Yeah, so a guy named Matt Stanfield here in town is a phenomenal keys player, and he came up with this little lead. And so I took that and added some slide and some other textury, reverbed out, delayed out type stuff. So let's hear just the guitars that I added. Yeah, so this track labeled Strat is sort of just like fills. They're kind of bluesy. They're kind of taking it to a different place than a typical CCM type track would be. But Mike referenced a Jason Isbell song in the reference tracks when he was telling me what he was envisioning for this song. So it's just a lot of double stops. That type of thing. So as that Strat double stop thing fades out, it kind of just bleeds into this raked tremolo thing that's going on. That's just that type of thing. So once that trem comes in, we got some slide stuff also. that type of thing, really verbed out afterward. So how I was thinking in this is the acoustic is driving it, the acoustic guitar that was already tracked and sent to me. And so I wanted to add a little bit of movement and a little bit of just vibe to it, to use that overused word. And so you have this texture going on with the trem part. The perk is keeping time. And then this here. So I have that panned over, but also going to a reverb bus, so it feels huge. And when they mixed it, they actually ended up mixing it very similarly, which I was happy to see. It's always fun when your ideas are kind of used. Or great minds think alike. Maybe they didn't even listen to my reference track and they just pulled the parts that I sent and dumped it into their Pro Tools session. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. When we get to the first chorus is when I added these really moving arpeggio type things. It's just... So you'll hear this arpeggio part come in where I'm just trying to keep as many common tones as I can, thinking like a piano player, and just moving notes where I need to. So I'll play with it. Another little fill there. So here's just the guitars happening. Something that I often try to think of when I'm layering parts on a song like this is embodying different characters. And I've heard a couple of different notable session players here in town that I look up to talk about this concept of putting on different hats, being the slide guy, being the swells guy that does the huge reverb, and you just get into a lane and stick with that part through the whole song, and then come back and be a different character. So the trem part at the very top here is the very first thing I added, and it's just raked chords with a little bit of tasteful tremolo on it, and it just kind of gives the basis. It's the glue that just happens throughout. Well, that's the lead line, but... nothing exciting. And then this next character is the slide guy, and let's pick out one part of this. So a lot of reverb and delay. Volume pedal swells, kind of trying to be a pedal steel player, essentially. So I typically will darken up. I'll go to the back pickup and then also kill a lot of the tone, just so. So, and then that character will come in and out a few times throughout the song. Just pull up the guitars. So you can hear tremolo parts happening throughout. We've added this little rhythmic thing that's just... that kind of thing with delay, kind of ping-ponging. Let's see, where is that? That type of thing. So here's just the guitars. Tremolo's happening. Slide stuff. That rhythmic type thing. And then getting into the second chorus, you want it to feel bigger, broader, wider, all of those things. So I'll add in some dyads, just kind of two-note chordal movement things, and then big raked chords. So here's everything. And now we have this guy happening. Get rid of that. So capoed up higher, just raking through the changes. Arpeggio's happening. Dyads. This is like the big bridge that you want to have punch to it. And so I started the first 2 times through just going through the changes and having big, powerful chordal stuff happening. But then you start to want something that glues it all together, and that can either be an up-high part that's sort of like a choral descant, or just something that doesn't feel like it's just playing through the chord changes. So we have the slides stuff to help us with that. Let's hear this. So that's really tucked into the back. You can hear those kind of whining steel type things. So we're in the last chorus, and so, like every good congregational song, the last chorus is a double chorus, and you have everything in full tilt. And how do you make it sound bigger and just a little bit more forward momentum? I also added this triad thing that's just up high. You can hear it here. And then, so I sent the song, finished, done. I had like a day to turn it around, and so I sent it to Mike, and then I listened through again, and I realized it was just the chord changes happening at the end. It didn't have any sort of hearkening back to the lead line. And I thought of Dan Huff's slide solo. I think it was Dan Huff that played it. I know he produced this track, but Taylor Swift's Red album, the self-titled track, there's this beautiful, just in-your-face slide part that I love, and it just made me think of this with the Jason Isbell reference and all the other slide stuff that I put on here. So I added this to it. Let me just play just the slide part. No slide part, unless you're like actually a slide player. It's embarrassing to hear just the slide part soloed up, but I'm going to show you what I did here. So that is the last lead line, and that brings us to the ending. Yeah, so listen to those keys ring out. Yeah. It was a fun track to play on. Thanks for having me, Mike.